Welcome to our Monday, November 21st, 2022 voting meeting of the Exeter Township School Directors. This evening, prior to this meeting, we had an executive session. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Fike, can you please take roll call?
Dr. Ann Herring.
Present.
John Fiddler.
Here.
Dr. Andrea Battler.
Here.
Dr. David Hemberger.
Here.
Jason Mell.
Here.
Timothy Morgan.
Here.
Robert Quinter. Julia Schaefer.
Here.
Allison Wilson. 8 present, 1 absent.
Thank you, Mr. Fike. In addition to the 8 board members in attendance this evening, we're also joined at the board table by our solicitor, Sharon Montaigne, and members of the school district administration, including Dr. Christy Haller, superintendent, Mrs. Dawn Harris, assistant superintendent, Dr. Eric Flam, director of teaching and learning, Mrs. Diane Skornabaki, director of human resources, and Mr. Brian Fike, who serves as our business administrator as well as our board secretary. We will not be amending the agenda tonight, so we'll move forward to recognition. Dr. Haller.
I'm very pleased this evening and honored to be able to recognize and celebrate Jackson World's principal, Mr. Matt Hathaway, for his receipt of the National Summer Learning Association Excellence in Summer Learning Award, which was presented to him in Washington in October. As many of you know, Matt is a graduate of Exeter and a longtime elementary school teacher, and I was thrilled to be able to recommend him to become the principal of Jackson World Elementary School. I think we all know that Matt's creative energy is infectious, and once he makes up his mind to do something, he does it. And I believe that we are all very grateful that his heart is in the Exeter community. Joining the board and the administration this evening is Senator Schwenk, who has been a strong advocate for the TIPS program, and Dr. Volkman, the executive assistant to the Deputy Secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Education. That's a mouthful. Dr. Cindy Mrzeski, who filled in for Exeter during our transition period, but has also been a huge support of Matt during the time he was coming up with this idea for TIPS. And his executive director for the TIPS board, Julie Klein, members as well as other members of his board, members of the ECEF board who have also been extremely supportive of TIPS, the Exeter staff, and of course Matt's wife, Jess, his daughters, Maisie and Amelia, and his parents, Pam and Mark Hathaway, where the TIPS program originated on their back porch. At this time, if we could please give Matt a round of applause. And Senator Schwenk, of course, is here with us, and I'd like to ask her to come to the podium to say a couple of words about Matt.
Thank you, Dr. Haller. Thank you to the Exeter School District Board for inviting me to be here tonight. You couldn't have kept me away from this event. I'm not just a casual observer of TIPS. I think I was at one of the first sessions, Matt, not on your parents' porch, but in this park, right here in this complex, and it was just a fantastic experience to watch these children get excited about learning, about summer school. And I'm not an educational expert by any means, but Matt was able to explain to me. He ran from blanket to blanket where these kids were and these teachers were working with them, and showed me how a learning experience that is hands-on, experiential, is in a wonderful outdoor environment, so different than what kids had been experiencing in the classroom. How powerful that could be in terms of helping them to learn and to continue learning over the summer. To Matt, Summer Slide is a mountain to be climbed and to be demolished. He is absolutely incredible in the work that he has done. I do believe, though, Matt, the reason why you invited me the first time was so you could get a meeting with somebody from the Department of Education. I was just the conduit, but you couldn't get rid of me. And Matt, I'm so proud of you for earning this award. Over the years, of course, I've been to other renditions of tips at different places and watched as the program evolved. As your team grew, Julie, thank you so much. I remember the meetings in this building with you as well, as we talked about how we would keep this funded and keep the program going. I was really invested in making sure that this would happen. It's Matt, you are a true leader. This award didn't come because of luck. This is persistence over many years and continuing to refine the product to look at how the program could be evaluated so that we could ensure that you could make the case to not only the board but to state educators as well as to how important this program could be, and that it could be a model for other programs, summer learning programs, not only in the Commonwealth, but throughout this country as well. So I brought a citation from the Senate of Pennsylvania, which I'm not going to read, because I really wanted to speak, Matt, words from my heart in terms of how much I admire you, the work that you have done, your team, the school board, the administrators here who believed in you as well. A wonderful thing has been created here, an educational program that's unequal to any other, apparently, in this entire country. You deserve so much credit for doing this, and I wish you so much success in the future as well. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
And if I could invite Dr. Volkman up to say a couple of words. I wasn't going to say your whole title again.
Well, that's very interesting because since I've been in the Department of Education over the last 13 years, I've had 5 titles. And I've served on 5 floors under 7 secretaries of education. So it's really great to be here this evening, and thank you for doing this for Matt. I met Matt actually a long time ago. I was welcoming all the teachers back to Exeter after their summer recess, and Matt came up to me and said, "I'd like to talk about something." Okay, but we didn't do it that day. And then I heard from Senator Schwank's office. We have this young. I said, "Yes, I've heard of him." He was already yes. I'll be glad to talk to him. But there's a saying in Africa by the Maasai, and when they greet people, they don't say hello. They say, "How are the children?" And after they have their conversation, at the very end, they say, "How are the children doing now?" Matt, you've helped kids do better and better and better because of the work you've done in the summertime. And you are really a true legend yourself in terms of making sure that children become who they were born. And that's what we're about in education. And he's critical to what we're doing. So thank you for having me this evening, and thank you.
Matt, if you could come up and say a couple of words.
I'm far more nervous right now than I was in DC. This belongs to all of us. But for a very long time, people stood by the idea that our kids needed help over the summer, including my daughter, apparently. And over the course of 18 years, we got creative on how to make opportunities available for our kids when they might not otherwise be available. And I wrote literally pages trying to figure out what I wanted to say, but when it comes down to it, I just want to say thank you. And in Washington, I wanted to make sure that I read individual names of people who had helped us along the way. And in here, I could name all of you. Teachers who taught in the program, people who got creative to help fund the program, people who just gave us a thumbs up to go ahead, people who spoke on Capitol Hill, people who spoke at the department, my mom and dad who gave us the zebra cakes to give the kids the first year. The tips board, you could go on and on and on, but what it comes down to is because of the belief in this community that summer learning is important. I don't know how, but we became this year a model for the nation. When you talk around here and go, yeah, we have our teachers out at the pools and parks and libraries and stuff, we go, oh yeah, it's cool, we've been doing that a long time. When you go to Washington and say that, they look at you like you're crazy, like it's a novel idea, like it's groundbreaking that a school district could work with a community park, that could work with a community pool, that could work with a childcare, that could work with anybody, and not be a contained island. And when we tell people that we have staff that want to teach, that we have a wait list of staff that want to come help, we're an anomaly here. And it's because of the faith over a long period of time here that for some reason, now that we've earned this award, we get to say it at a national level. We get to open up opportunities now at the U.S. Department of Education next month as they restructure 21st century. We get a say at what summer will look like, not just in our community, but in communities and places we'll probably never get to visit. And I think my why has changed over the years. And I had a great mentor that told me, if you're going to go into the nonprofit world, you have to have your why screwed on tight. And at the very beginning, I had no idea why I started it. I had a couple of kids that wanted help, and I had a brother, Alex, who wanted help, so I started there. And then it was like, wow, kids in my class could really, use some help, and kids in other classes, we got other teachers together. And then, eventually it was like, wow, other communities want to know what we're doing. And I'll tell you why I do it now. It's because those two little girls over there, even after 18 years, I'm not convinced yet that when they go to school that they're going to have opportunities over the summer. It is the first thing often on a chopping block when it comes down to budget season. But literacy is not seasonal. It is seasonal to us only because of the calendar we choose to make every year. But for kids in growth, it doesn't make any sense. And I had she is of course the one talking during this. And the more that I've studied, the more that I've read, if we really were interested in having more children in our community be proficient, according to the standard we set, we would be having a serious conversation about the 3 months over the summer that we know impacts their growth. And if you look at the way a child grows, and if you've ever talked to me, you've probably heard me say this. A farmer is not responsible for the growth of a seed. They're responsible for the conditions of growth. They don't make the seed grow. They make sure it has the right amount of water, the right amount of sun, the right amount of fertilizer, the right amount of care in the soil, nutrients, whatever. The seed grows as a result of its environment. And the best farmers in the world have figured out the recipe. When to plant, what to feed it. And it's the same with our kids. Now, summer does not have to be drill and kill as it is during the year until we have a more serious conversation about this school calendar. However, if you can provide the conditions for growth, if you can bring joy back to learning, if you can put a teacher in front of them that cares about them, if you can have them maintain a literacy or math goal throughout the summer and put them months ahead, that growth compounds over many years to where they can be successful. And I don't know how after 18 years we ended up here, because we never meant to grow it at a national scale. But Exeter is a great place to be. And thank God for all of you in this room who have championed us along the way so that this community can be a model for others. Thank you, everybody. Very grateful.
I would love to say something, but I'm going to cry. So I'm going to, I love you. And we are so lucky to have you in our school district. So you say thank you to us, but honestly, it's us saying thank you to you. Anybody else want to say something? No? Okay.
So I'd just like to take a minute again to thank all of you for coming this evening. It was just truly a pleasure to be able to put something small, but I think very important for Matt, just to recognize so he knows how much Exeter values who he is and what he does for our school district. And we're just so thrilled that he's ours. And while some of his ideas might be a little crazy, they're very well worth it, and we're happy to be along for the ride here. So thank you, Matt.
Okay. Do they get ice cream now that they had cake? Okay. All right. Next on the agenda then, Superintendent Report, Dr. Haller.
Thank you, Dr. Herring. I have a number of exciting items to share with the community. As you're aware, Friday, November 11th was Veterans Day. And I'm pleased to announce that this year was the first year that all 3 K-4 buildings held celebrations honoring our veterans. Lorraine and Awatin Creeks hosted their events on November 11th, and Jacksonville celebrated on the 14th. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the 3 K-4 principals, Karen Hodge, Charlie Payne, and Matt Hathaway, as well as their staffs, for organizing this event. Thank you to Detective Sergeant Rocco DiCamillo, Marine Corps veteran, and 3 officers from Exeter PD who are also Marine Corps veterans for being part of the celebrations. I'd also like to thank several of our own Exeter Township School District employees who are veterans. Bill Galvin, grade 4 OC teacher who spoke at the Awatin Creek celebration. Brandon Ziegler, high school social studies teacher who hosted a number of veterans to speak to students at the high school. One participant was our very own Director of Facilities, Stephen Bickerstaff. And lastly, I'd like to recognize board member Mr. Robert Quinter, who is a Marine Corps veteran and was recognized by his grandson at the Jacksonville Elementary celebration. So thank you to all of our veterans for their service. I also like to take a moment to thank members of Reformation Church here in Exeter for donating 19 turkey dinners to Exeter families in need. The complete dinners were brought this morning to the administration building and were delivered to families by the Exeter Administrator Alicia Lenhart and social worker Ashley Reinhardt. Continuing with the spirit of Thanksgiving, tomorrow we will be at Awatin Creek. And when I say we, that's Dawn. Dawn's going to be at Awatin Creek. And we will be participating in the Turkey Trot, which is an event that supports their food drive. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of our little OC turkeys. And then lastly, Matt has left, I think, the building. And I was planning on embarrassing him, but I didn't want to steal the thunder tonight. But I would like to thank Matt Hathaway and his staff for a fun-filled Friday afternoon. Mr. Hathaway brought back the tradition of the turkey raffle. This student center event was established many years ago by longtime Exeter principal Dr. Joe Schloffer, to recognize and celebrate outstanding behavior. Thank you to the Ole Weiss Market for donating the turkeys. And it is our wish, the administration's wish, for all of our staff members and families to have a relaxing Thanksgiving and spend time with loved ones. And we hope that you'll join us for the District 3 5A Championship Football Playoff game this Friday at home, starting at 7 o'clock. And we wish Coach Bauer and his team the best of luck, and please be sure to bundle up.
Thank you, Dr. Haller. Next is public comment, but no one has signed up, so we'll move on to board meeting minutes. If there's no objection, we'll adopt a motion to approve meeting minutes from last month's school board meeting, October 5th, 2022 board committee of a whole meeting, as well as October 17th board voting meeting. Hearing no objections, the minutes are approved. If there are no objections, we'll adopt a motion to approve the October 2022 Treasurer's Report and payment request dated October 18th to November 21st, 2022. Hearing no objections, the Treasurer's Report is approved. On to committees. Education Committee, Mr. Fidler.
Thank you, Dr. Hearing. The first item is just for information. It's the monthly enrollment report for the board and the public's review. We then have field trips within the 60-mile radius. Again, no board action required, and we have some new trips added to the list. So the first item for board action is item C. It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the following field trips beyond a 60-mile radius, and there are 3 there: the Exeter Ski and Snowboard Club trip in February, the junior high choral students traveling to Nazareth, also in February, and the senior high school French exchange program, 21 students, 27 French exchange students, will travel to Washington, D.C. on February 1st.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Finally, item D is the list of staff conferences. There were 3 before at the COW meeting. There are several new ones now. We also have, it's a long list, the Rifton Robotics Coding Program, and several agreements between organizations and the Chester County Intermediate Unit. And finally, we recommend the approval of the 2022-2023 school year agreement with the Berks County IU for $89,007.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Dr. Hearing, just a question about item 2, Rifton Robotics. What action are we taking on that item?
You're approving it to be a club. This year it will just be strictly volunteer, and then if it takes off, then we will need to add an advisor, which will be at a cost to the district to add the advisor. This was one of the wingspan projects that was presented last year.
Oh, I just, it just didn't appear to be a very clear motion, so thank you. Thanks for the explanation.
I have an odd question about that. Is that something that we can just say is something we're doing for a year and leave it at that? Just as, say, an experimental club? Or is it proposing that we have to keep it and go for it?
No, all of our clubs start out with basically a preliminary starting period to see if the program takes off. And then once we see if this is a popular club, then we would present to the board for an advisor position. So they all start out at this juncture of like just starting the club, but with no additional financial responsibility for the board.
And how much is an advisor? May I ask? Typically, I know there's a range.
There is a range. So advisors could be from the community where there's one basically payment tier because they don't have maybe other experiences. But if they're our employee, then it's also based on years of experience or years that they've done the club. There's a formula for it in the contract.
And will there be added cost for equipment after the first year?
I suspect that there will be because it's a robotics club. So the ECF gave the school district the seed money to start the program. But I would suspect that once you have students participating, there will be replacement costs for items.
Okay, and this wasn't something that was brought to us by a student. This was brought to us as an idea from where?
The previous administration.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
And that concludes the report for the Education Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Personnel Committee, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Dr. Herring. Just one quick clerical change to the agenda under retirements. That should be number 2, not D, I believe. Okay. It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves or ratifies the following personnel items under number 1, resignation, extracurricular staff A and B, support staff A, B, and C.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
It's recommended the Board of School Directors approves or ratifies the following personnel items number 2 under retirements, support staff A.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
For number 3, I'm going to pull out contracted staff A. So we'll do that second. So it is recommended the Board of School Directors approves or ratifies the following personnel items. Under number 3, appointments, it'll be support staff A through D, extracurricular staff A through E, certified substitutes A.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And it's nice to see Mr. DeWalt's name here.
It is recommended the Board of School Directors approves or ratifies the following personnel items. Under number 3, appointments, contracted staff A.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes. Could we get an explanation on what A is for and why it was necessary to bring to the voting meeting?
Sure. We have made it a practice to make sure that transfers are public, and we did have a reading specialist position. But this is ESL. We had an ESL.
This is the
accounting consultant.
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off.
You want me to take that one? Okay. Our treasurer left 2 weeks ago, with notice. Our new person that's replacing her will not be here to December 19th. And we are overwhelmed, and I want to make sure nothing falls behind in our bookkeeping. And we went through PASBO to try to find the best person, and we were finally able to find someone that can give us 10 days or 11 days total.
And just as a reminder to the community, Mr. Fike, I believe we had talked about this in a previous meeting that in some school districts, a lot of these positions are done through a third party, but here we do it internally, and that helps for the cost savings as well, correct?
Correct. This is just a temporary stopgap measure, if you want to call it.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, if no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves or ratifies the following personnel items. Number 4, change of status. Under certified staff A, under support staff A and B, under food service staff A, under guest teachers A, and under leaves of absence A through E.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Finally, it is recommended the Board of School Directors approves or ratifies the following personnel items. Number 5, the attached list of course requests.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Question. And I spoke with Mrs. Wilson about this. Is there a reason the schools, institutions are not on this list?
We could certainly add that.
Well, it's been on. I looked some of the previous meetings, and the school was always there. Okay. And secondly, and I've been approving these for 3 years, so I'm remiss in not mentioning this before. The top-rated graduate school of education is less than an hour away, University of Pennsylvania. Yet I've never seen any courses for Penn. Is there a reason for that?
I can speak from my own personal experience because I had investigated going to Penn for my doctorate. Penn is very, very costly, and we do have tuition reimbursement, and it just, when you're trying to work through the program at a rate, because you only have so many years to finish certain programs, it just becomes very cost prohibitive to go to Penn.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you, Dr. Herring. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Finance, Facilities, and Audit Committee, Mr. Mount.
Thank you, Dr. Herring. On my agenda, we have consent items here. It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the following finance, facilities, and audit items. Number 1, setting the maximum rate of the index, adjusted index of 5.3% for the 2023-24 school year. Number 2, proposed advertising rates. Number 3, which is new and was not in the Cal meeting, which is budget transfers in the amount of $380,287.16.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a point of clarification. I don't think I said it previously, but I know others have. Just because the index is 5.3 doesn't mean we have to go to 5.3. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. That is the district saying that no matter what, we will not be seeking a tax increase above 5.3%.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Dr. Herring, that is it for my committee report.
Short and sweet. Thank you, Mr. Mount. Policy Committee, Dr. Hamburger.
Thanks, Dr. Herring. It's recommended the Board of School Directors approve the following policies. We have 2 policies for first reading, Policy 805.2 and Policy 201, and then Policy 808 is a policy for second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
And that's all for my report. Thanks, Dr. Herring.
Thank you, Dr. Hamburger. Athletics and extracurricular activities, Mr. Quinter.
Fortunately, in the world of athletics, Exeter has been making its mark both as teams and as individuals. Just a short review of these. Our boys cross country team won the county championship for the second year in a row and qualified for the District 3 race. We had 2 boys qualify for the state. The girls cross country won the county championship for the second year in a row and qualified for the District 3 race as well. We had 3 girls from that team qualified for the state meet. Girls volleyball qualified for the county tournament and beat Fleetwood in the quarterfinal match and advanced to the semifinals. They also qualified for the District 3 tournament when they defeated Elizabethtown. The girls water polo team qualified for the state tournament. The golf team had 2 boys qualify for the District 3 tournament. The girls tennis team had 2 boys qualify for the District 3 singles and doubles tournament. The cheerleading team will be competing in the county championships on Saturday, December 10th at Exeter Township, and beginning at 8 o'clock in the morning. So all of you, I expect to get a report that you're there. The football team will be hosting Calico in the District 3 championship game on Friday at 7 p.m. The gates will open at 5:15. High school winter sports started on Friday, November 18th. Junior high school winter sports will be starting on Tuesday, the 29th. We will have a full report when Miss Wilson returns in December. And if not, I'll give you a report.
You'll be there for us. Thank you, Mr. Prince. I appreciate that.
Dr. Herring, I'd also like to congratulate the high school and junior high school on their fall plays. Unfortunately, did not get to attend this year, but I heard from several people that they were absolutely fantastic.
Great. Thank you. Exeter Community Education Foundation, Dr. Battler.
Thank you, Dr. Herring. ECEF is gearing up for 2 student outreach events in December, the first event being our 2nd annual Shop with a Teacher event at Boscov's, and the second event, our shoe giveaway event for Exeter students in need. For the shoe event, our schools are hosting a coin drive to raise funds for personal care items. The coin drive proceeds will help us give our students items such as shampoo, deodorant, body wash, etc. at the shoe event. The K-6 buildings are competing for extra recess, making the coin drive extra fun, thanks to our principals and staff for incentivizing this fundraiser. And as I told my kids at home, if they can just grab 4 quarters, that's enough to buy something. So I want everybody else to tell their kids the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Battler. BCTC Joint Operating Committee, Mr. Fiddler.
Nothing beyond the JOC briefs that you've already received. There'll be no meeting this month. We'll meet again in December.
Thank you. Dr. Hemberger, can you cover BCIU Board of Directors and Legislative Liaison?
Yes, thanks, Dr. Herring. In terms of the BCIU, one thing that BCIU does every quarter is to host the Committee on Legislative Action. And this year they hosted it on Election Day on November 8th. And this was done primarily on virtual format. This whole thing is really to keep administrators and school board members abreast with legislative landscape and to continue conversations on how to best advocate for students in our schools. We heard at that meeting from PSBA's Policy Director Andrew Christ and then Larry Feinberg, who most of you may know is the director of the Keystone Center for Charter Change. And they both shared their insights regarding the fall legislative sessions in Harrisburg, the PSBA priorities for 2023, as well as the progress that we've been making on charter school reform. And that was primarily Mr. Feinberg's emphasis of his presentation. Of particular interest really was the changes that we're anticipating in Harrisburg due to the election. Mr. Chris said that there were probably over 60 new legislators that would be elected in the Commonwealth. Actually, it was kind of hard for him to say that because it was on Election Day that we had this meeting, and if the very next day, it may have been very different in terms of how he may have talked about it. Because I think the fact that the House becomes controlled more at the Democratic level, at least the House of Representatives, could have a very different impact upon how we look at things like charter school change and some of the other major initiatives that we have through PSBA. So all very interesting and very timely information that we received, from the representatives from PSBA. And the next COLA meeting will be on February 21st. And by the way, anybody who'd like to participate in these, they've been running them virtually. They're generally 7:30 in the morning. They're extremely informative, and if you'd like to participate, just let me know and I'll hook you up with our IU contact so you can participate in that. Our BCIU board meeting was last Thursday. The board was provided an update on the legislative profile of the Berks County delegation. We have, from what I can tell, 2 new members in that delegation. So Berks County has 5 state senators and 8 members in the House. And I did share some of that information to the board. I think a pictorial representation of all of the delegation that serves Berks County in Harrisburg. Also at the board meeting, in terms of general matters, we heard from the IU Safety and Security Coordinator about the proposed changes and updates in the IU Safety and Security and All Hazards Plan. So the next board meeting will actually be in January. There will not be a board meeting in December. In terms of legislative report, the PSBA Delegate Assembly met recently to review and revise and amend the legislative platform and principles for the 2023 and 24 legislative session. And Julia and Bob attended that meeting virtually on our behalf, and they represented Exeter. So I'll turn it over to Julia and Bob for a report on the outcome of that Delegate Assembly meeting.
Thanks, Dr. Hemberger. Oh yeah, so Bob and I did attend on November 5th. It was about, 3.5 hours? Virtually, it was a long time. A lot of discussion. Essentially, the big talking points were voting on the 4 priorities that, they wanted to have for the 2023-24 school year, and the session for the General Assembly. So the 4 talking points that were approved are to provide, these are going to be the priorities, provide significant continued state and federal financial investments for school districts, prioritize the mental health and safety needs of students. There's a lot of banter about this topic because they wanted to separate it and have 2 specific, but it was voted that we would keep mental health and safety needs of students because collectively they, should remain together. They want to enact comprehensive and meaningful charter school reforms that reduce the financial burden on school districts and require the same high standards of academic performance and accountability. And the 4th, oppose efforts to provide direct financial aid to students who would use those funds to enroll in non-public schools, or efforts that would divert the state or federal funding away from the school districts in order to fund such programs. So those are the 4 priorities that they will be taking to the General Assembly in the next 2 years. I thought it was really great to hear everyone's perspective on different topics that we did go through. They also did update the bylaws with some different wordings, but not much of a significant change to those. So, and they did, went through the financials and also the leadership elections, which Mr. Hemberger or Dr. Hemberger sent out to us. So I suggest if anyone wants to do it next year, it's fun.
Yeah, I participated also as a representative for BCIU. And you're right. It's a long session, and the debates were really, I think, very interesting. I was interested to hear Mark Detterline from the Reading School District talk a little bit about one of the initiatives, which was really to kind of get more teachers of diversity into the public school system in Pennsylvania, especially in some of those districts that have high minority representation. And Mark spoke, I think, very eloquently about the value of having a diverse teaching staff in places like Reading, where they have such a high minority community. So that was one of the areas I thought that was probably one of the most significant changes in the platform, which I think represented some of the principles that guide it, which was the recruitment of new teachers and giving districts more flexibility in terms of the assignment of teachers as well. I think they also, at the very end, they announced the new PSBA president, who I think is it Michael Gossert? from Cumberland Valley School District.
I believe so. I forgot to write those down. I had my earbuds on. I was walking around, so towards the end.
So every year they do this. They also go through the new leadership election announcements, and we were involved as a board in electing these folks as well. Thanks for your
yeah, and just the kind of the topics that were brought to vote for priorities, those are based upon the responses to surveys we received over the summer. If you did take those surveys, so the committee didn't just kind of come up with these items. These were all topics for the survey, and based on 1 through 4, that's how they were placed on the platform for review. So
yeah, I think too the important thing about these legislative priorities is that they represent the work that the advocates and lobbyists in Harrisburg will emphasize, when they meet with the legislature. And so this kind of represents a big part of what they'll be emphasizing when they do meet with legislators and try to influence legislation. So, anything else? Any questions about the?
I was a little disappointed in that the format had not changed from the past, and I will explain. Some committee meets in some diner up in Harrisburg and puts these things together. And it is against the rules for any representative to modify it in any, any real manner that might affect the. So essentially, it's the State School Board Association telling us what they want to do, and we don't have the ability to change it. And I sat there and I was glad it was virtual, because I was yelling at my computer about you stupid. When people brought up very valid objections or very valid revisions, and they had, I don't remember the lawyer's name that's been there since Christ was a corporal.
Mike Levin.
Yeah, Mike Levin. He's there judging whether the delegates are out of line or not. So if you get a chance to appoint me to that board next year, I would love to represent us, and I promise not to spend more than a hamburger's worth of money for the meal. So it has ticked me off for years. So
can we put that on next month's agenda right away? I want to see this.
Well, next year, Bob, I think maybe you should show up in person, because I think that was where that's where all the energy in the room was. Yeah, they did. It was right after the annual conference. Yeah. Dr. Herring, that's all for our report.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for that update.
Dr. Herring, I have a question.
Sure.
I'm sure you all saw the compelling video essay in the New York Times, interviews with teachers who have left the profession. So I'm curious to know what the association is doing about the exodus to stanch the flow of bleeding from our public schools in the form of teachers leaving left and right.
Well, the association's, I think its biggest, I'll say maybe weapon is its legislative clout. I mean, its ability to go into Harrisburg and start to influence legislators, because that's where the change really has to happen. I mean, how folks can be incentivized to come into public education can be in many ways shaped by legislation that can be put in place in Harrisburg. So I'm not so sure how much PSBA can do, but they can put together, I think, ideas and recommendations for the legislature to consider, John.
But shouldn't this have been one of those 4 points? This is a serious problem. Talk to any public school superintendent, not just in Berks County, but across the Commonwealth. This is a very serious problem.
Yeah, I think they do talk. I mean, the only thing I can see is, as Julia pointed out, I mean, one of the primary areas is the continued state and federal financial investment for school districts. I think that's maybe part of it, but like you're saying, if it was really that big of an issue, maybe it should have been one of the major cornerstones of their legislative.
I agree, it should have.
Yeah.
Township Borough Liaison, Mr. Mel.
Yes, Dr. Herring, I just have a couple things. One, I just want to point out that the township has been having a series of budget meetings. They do have one tomorrow, Tuesday, November 22nd at 6 p.m., where there could be a possible motion to advertise their 2023 budget. In addition, there was something I missed actually in my last report in October. We had a supervisor that had reached out to me in September to ask about paying for a shuttle bus to help transport people from Boscov's East over to the Reading Country Club for the event on October 15th. I believe that was worked out. It was approximately $250 that was paid for that to the district, and that covered overtime and gas, and it was approximately 4 hours on that day. Dr. Herring, that's it for my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mel. Next would be public comment. Would anybody from the public like to be heard at this point? No? Okay. Would anyone on the board like to be heard?
I'd just like to maybe, as an afterthought, just kind of as I reflect on Matt Hathaway and what he's done and what he's overcome over many years, these 18 years of working with TIPS, it has not been an easy road for Matt. And there are many times where I think a lesser man would have kind of folded up his tent and gone away. And Matt has stuck in there and stuck with it. And I have to give him a lot of respect and admire him highly for his dedication and passion in keeping this program going in Exeter. And I think we should all be extremely grateful, for all the extra efforts that he's put into place. And for helping to generate, I think, positive feelings among the community and the board so that we continue to do it. And I think it's a feather in the cap of Exeter that we have a program like this and we have an all-star like Matt, who is now part of our administration. So kudos to Matt, but also for all those who have made TIPS work over all these years.
I just have one additional comment in regards to, I think WFMZ had done a report a few weeks back, and I've also been seeing some chatter on social media. And this is in regards to the still hearing issues of people passing buses while their stop arm camera is out. I don't know if we have any idea of if there's an increase of that. It's probably a little bit hard to tell, but I would just remind the public, obviously, that those aren't optional. You do have to stop when the stop sign is out for the bus, and there are very severe penalties if you are caught, and those cameras will catch you. Thank you.
I believe this board approved the purchase of cameras for buses. Do we know how many buses have them, and B, have we ever supplied the information to police after an infraction? In other words, how many prosecutions have we had?
All of our buses have stop arm cameras, and every time they're passed with the reds flashing, that is a picture taken of the license plate, and that is turned over to the police for prosecution. We do not get reports back from the prosecution, but we do turn them over every single time.
Jason, is that something you might be able to get from the police and bring that to the board? Just a number of how many?
It would probably require a right to know request, but I'm happy to file that if I need to.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Brian, do you know whether or not, is it true that, it may be just a faint recollection that I have, any fines that are incurred as a result of failing to yield or stop at a stop arm from a bus, the penalties and the fines, do they go back to the school district? Are you aware of that?
I think it's a percentage, but whenever we get restitutions or If it's restitution, we get the name, but if it's fine percentage, we have no idea what it's for. We just get a check.
Okay. Well, we do get money back then?
We do get some money.
Oh, we do, okay.
It's not a win.
Not the full amount.
No.
I mean, it's a fairly significant
It's like
penalty.
everything else. State gets their cut, local police get their cut, and then we get a small percentage.
But I mean, I think for somebody who violates, it's a pretty significant penalty in terms of loss of license for a period of time. I'm not sure how long that is. It could be 6 months or a year.
We could probably get more information.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just even kind of going back to Mr. Fiddler's question, I mean, does the police department typically engage the school district for every violation? Would we have that information ourselves rather than needing to reach out?
Engage. I can ask Ben to say what we sent over, but like I said before, we do not hear anything back, and I don't think we're
to the outcomes of
to the outcome.
Okay.
We just know what we turned.
What was turned over, but we don't know.
Every time he gets a call from the bus driver that someone ran the stop,
Okay.
he pulls it off, sends the video to the police.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? No? Okay. The next board meeting will be our reorganization and committee of a whole meeting on Wednesday, December 7th at 6 p.m. Hearing no objections, we'll adjourn. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone.